The heart monitor flatlined at 11:47 p.m. Sarah Mitchell's body lay motionless on the gurney, her face pale as death itself, blood still seeping from the gash on her forehead where the impact had split her skin open. The paramedics worked frantically, compressions pumping her chest in desperate rhythm. But the line on the monitor remained flat, that terrible continuous tone screaming the truth no one wanted to hear. "Clear!" The shock paddles hit her chest. Her body jerked. Nothing. Again! "Clear!" Another jolt. Still nothing. The lead paramedic checked his watch, his face grim. "Time of death, 11:47 p.m. But somewhere beyond that broken body, beyond the twisted metal of her car and the blood-soaked asphalt, Sarah Mitchell was standing in a place she'd hoped never to see again. The corridor of light stretched before her, impossibly bright, impossibly real, and her heart, or whatever she had in this form, filled with absolute terror. "No," she whispered. "No, not again. Please, not again." The angel appeared, the same one from before, his face kind but immovable. "Sarah Mitchell, you are called." "I changed," Sarah screamed, backing away. "You saw me change. I wasn't performing anymore. I loved. I sacrificed. I did everything right." "Come," the angel said simply, and she had no choice but to follow. The gates loomed ahead, those massive pearl gates she'd seen in her first dream. But this time they weren't opening. This time they stood closed, locked, final. And when Jesus appeared in that blinding holy light, when he looked at her with those eyes full of sorrow, Sarah knew. She knew before he even spoke. "Lord, please," she sobbed, "please don't do this." "Did you forgive him, Sarah?" His voice was gentle, but it cut through her like a sword. "He destroyed me. He used me. He took everything." "Did you forgive him?" And Sarah's scream echoed through eternity as the darkness began to swallow her whole. "I'll forgive him. Please, send me back. I'll forgive him." Then her eyes snapped open in the ambulance, her chest heaving as the paramedics stared in shock at the monitor that had suddenly, impossibly shown a heartbeat again. But to understand how Sarah Mitchell ended up dead on that road, how the woman who'd transformed her entire life could still face heaven's rejection, we need to go back. Back to 18 months after her first warning, when everything seemed perfect and her redemption story was complete. Sarah's wedding day had been small and beautiful, nothing like the elaborate productions she would have planned in her old life. Just 50 people in a simple garden ceremony, her father walking her down the aisle with tears streaming down his face, and Marcus waiting at the altar looking at her like she'd hung the moon.
Marcus, the homeless man she'd met outside that cafe, the one who'd been an angel in her dream, the one she'd later befriended and mentored and somehow, impossibly, fallen in love with. People had warned her. Pastor David had counseled caution. Her friends had expressed concern, but Sarah had seen something real in Marcus, something genuine, and she believed that loving him was what Jesus would do. "You're crazy," Janet had said, though she'd said it with love. "But I've never seen you happier." And Sarah had been happy, deliriously, authentically happy. She'd used the money she'd saved from her old ministry days to pay for Marcus's rehabilitation, his education, to help him start a small business. $3.7 million invested in a man everyone else had thrown away. But Sarah believed in redemption. She believed in second chances. After all, God had given her one. Their first year of marriage had been everything she dreamed. Marcus was attentive, loving, devoted. He worked hard at his business, came home every night with flowers or a smile or a story that made her laugh. They served together at the church's homeless ministry. They prayed together every morning. They built a life that felt real and solid and true. Sarah's ministry had started growing again too, but differently this time. No spotlight, no performance, just genuine service. She spoke at small churches, shared her testimony, helped other women who'd struggled with pride and performance. Her story of transformation and radical love inspired people. She was finally living the authentic faith she'd only pretended to have before. But in the second year, things began to change. It started small. Marcus staying late at work, being secretive with his phone, strange charges appearing on their credit card statements. When Sarah asked about it, he'd get defensive, angry, accusing her of not trusting him after everything he'd done to change. "You're just like everyone else," he'd snap. "You say you believe in me, but you're always watching, always suspicious." Sarah would apologize, pray for more grace, try harder to trust. She didn't want to be that wife, the one who suffocated her husband with paranoia. So she gave him space. She chose to believe the best. Until the day she found the second phone. It was hidden under the seat of his car, tucked into a gap where it had slipped during what must have been a frantic moment. Sarah had been looking for her sunglasses when her fingers brushed the smooth glass. She pulled it out, stared at it, felt her stomach drop even before she turned it on. No password. He hadn't expected anyone to find it. The messages loaded, and Sarah's world shattered with each one she read. "I love you, baby." She doesn't suspect anything. Just a few more months, and we'll have everything we need. She's so gullible. Thinks I actually care about her church stuff. There were pictures, too. Marcus with another woman, intimate and smiling, clearly in love. Real love, not the performance he'd given Sarah. And bank statements. Transfer after transfer, hundreds of thousands of dollars moved to accounts Sarah had never seen, to a business that didn't exist, to a life Marcus had been building with someone else, while Sarah had believed she was living out God's perfect redemption story. She sat in that car for 2 hours, reading every message, looking at every picture, watching her beautiful life reveal itself as an elaborate con. When Marcus came home that evening, she was waiting in the living room with the phone on the coffee table between them. "Sarah, I can explain." "Don't." Her voice was ice. "Don't insult me by lying anymore." He stared at the phone, then at her, and something in his face shifted. The mask he'd worn for 2 years slipped away, and what remained was cold and calculating. "Fine," he said. "You want the truth? I never loved you, Sarah. I needed you. Your money, your connections, your desperate need to save someone. You were so easy to manipulate. All I had to do was play the grateful reform man, and you threw everything at me." Every word was a knife to her chest. "The business doesn't exist. Well, it exists, just not in my name. Vanessa and I have been planning this for 3 years. When I saw you that day outside the cafe, I'd already researched you. Knew exactly what you wanted to hear, how to play the broken man you could fix." Sarah couldn't breathe. "That day, you said that day changed your life." Marcus laughed, and it was the cruelest sound she'd ever heard. "It did. Changed my bank account anyway. You were the biggest score of my life, Sarah. $3.7 million. Not bad for 2 years of pretending to care about your Jesus nonsense." "Get out," Sarah whispered. "Gladly. Thanks for everything." He walked to the door, paused. "Oh, and Sarah, you were always too good to be true. Should have stayed on that stage where you belonged. At least then you were honest about the performance." The door slammed, the BY morning, every account was emptied. Marcus had vanished with everything, leaving Sarah with nothing but a foreclosure notice and the smoking ruins of her life. The months that followed were the darkest Sarah had ever known. She lost the house, the car, everything. Had to move into a tiny apartment in a bad part of town, take a job at a grocery store just to pay rent. The church members who'd admired her radical faith now whispered behind her hands. We tried to warn her. She was foolish. Wisdom and faith have to work together. This is what happens when you're naive. Some meant well, but their words were salt in wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding. Worse were the ones who seemed almost satisfied, who'd never liked her transformation story because it made them uncomfortable, and now they had proof that extremes never worked out. Sarah stopped going to church, stopped answering Janet's calls, stopped talking to her father. She couldn't bear their concern, their pity, their attempts to help. She didn't want help. She wanted the pain to stop, and when it wouldn't, she started looking for ways to numb it. First it was wine, just a glass at night to help her sleep. Then it was a bottle. Then it was vodka because it worked faster. When alcohol wasn't enough, she found pills. Painkillers, anxiety medication, anything that would blur the edges of her agony. Her prayers became accusations. I did everything you asked. I stopped performing. I loved like you said. I gave everything. And this is what I get? This is what radical faith gets me. You let him destroy me. She'd rage at the ceiling, rage at God, rage at herself for being stupid enough to believe that love and faith and sacrifice meant anything in a world where people like Marcus could exist. The bitterness grew in her heart like a cancer, black and spreading, poisoning everything it touched. 6 months after Marcus left, Sarah stood in her apartment, holding a bottle of pills, staring at them, doing the math. Would this many be enough? Would it finally stop the pain? The doorbell rang. Sarah almost didn't answer. Didn't want to deal with a landlord or a bill collector or another well-meaning church member, try to save her soul. But something made her walk to that door, made her look through the peephole, made her see the man standing on the other side. Marcus. He looked terrible. Thin, beaten down, with the kind of exhaustion that came from hitting absolute bottom. And when Sarah threw open that door, when 2 years of pain and betrayal and rage came exploding out of her, she didn't think. She just reacted. How dare you? She launched herself at him, fists hitting his chest, his face, anywhere she could reach. How dare you come back here? Marcus didn't fight back. He just stood there, taking the blows, tears streaming down his face. Sarah, please. I need to talk to you. Talk? You want to talk? She was screaming now, neighbors opening doors, people staring. You destroyed me. You took everything. You used me and threw me away like garbage. I know. I'm so sorry. Saw the word was a shriek. You're sorry? Do you know what my life has been? Do you know what you did to me? Yes, Marcus sobbed. Yes, I know. And I deserve everything you want to do to me. But please, just listen. No. Something in Sarah snapped, some final thread of sanity breaking under the weight of too much pain. She ran to the kitchen, grabbed the knife from the counter, ran back before any rational thought could stop her. Marcus's eyes went wide. Sarah. She stabbed him in the shoulder, felt the blade sink in, heard his scream, and in that moment all she felt was satisfaction. He staggered back and she slashed at his arm, blood spraying across her walls, her floor, her hands. She raised the knife again, but Marcus fell, curled on the ground, not defending himself, just crying. I deserve this, he gasped. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I forgive you, Sarah. I forgive you. Those words stopped her. The knife trembled in her hand as neighbors screamed, as sirens wailed in the distance, as reality came crashing back, and Sarah looked down at what she'd done, at the blood everywhere, at the man she tried to kill. The police burst through the door minutes later, found Marcus bleeding badly, found Sarah still holding the knife, her eyes empty and dead. If you're watching this and your heart is racing, if you're thinking about someone who betrayed you, someone you can't forgive, don't go anywhere. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about forgiveness. Drop a comment below. Is there someone you're struggling to forgive? You're not alone, and this story is for you. Sarah sat in the holding cell for 8 hours, watching the clock tick, feeling nothing. A detective came eventually, told her Marcus was in surgery, told her she was looking at attempted murder charges, 10 to 15 years if he survived, more if he didn't. She didn't care. Her soul already felt dead. What did prison matter when she was already living in hell? Then the detective came back with news that made no sense. Someone posted your bail. Who? Marcus. He's awake. He posted bail for you, and he's refusing to press charges. Sarah stared at him. What? He said it was his fault. Said he deserved what happened. Said he wants to talk to you. Every instinct screamed at Sarah to refuse, to never see him again. but something pulled her to that hospital room. Marcus lay in the bed, bandages covering his shoulder and arm, and 4 in his hand, looking at her with eyes that were completely different from the ones she'd seen that night he'd left. "Why?" Sarah's voice was hoarse. "Why would you bail me out?" "Because I'm sorry." Marcus's voice broke. "Because I destroyed you and I deserve everything you did to me and so much more. Because Vanessa left me the day after I gave her the money. Took everything and disappeared. Because I ended up back on the streets and finally understood what I'd done, who I'd hurt, what I'd become. I don't care about your redemption story," Sarah said coldly. "I know. I don't expect you to. I just need you to hear this." Marcus looked at her with tears streaming down his face. "I found Jesus, Sarah. Really found him. Not the performance version I faked for you, but the real one. And he showed me what I did to you. Showed me I destroyed the one person who actually loved me. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging for it anyway. Not because I want anything from you. Just because it's killing me to know I hurt you so badly." Sarah felt something volcanic rising in her chest. "You want me to forgive you? After you took everything? After you used me? After you destroyed my life? I know it's too much to ask. You're right. It is." Her voice was ice and venom and pure hatred. "I will never forgive you, Marcus. Never. I hope you suffer every single day for what you did. I hope it haunts you until you die. And my only regret is that I didn't finish the job when I had the chance." She walked out of that room, leaving Marcus weeping behind her, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. He deserved that pain. He deserved worse. And she would never, ever forgive him. Sarah drove away from that hospital with tears blurring her vision, her hands shaking on the wheel, the darkness in her heart so complete she couldn't see any light anymore. She wasn't paying attention to the road, didn't see the truck running the red light, didn't have time to react before the impact hit her car like the hand of God, sending her spinning, flipping, metal crushing and glass shattering, and everything going black. And then she was standing in that corridor again. The angel looked at her with profound sadness. "Sarah Mitchell, you're called." "No," Sarah whispered, backing away. "I changed. I did everything right. Come." The walk to those gates felt like walking to her own execution. They stood closed, massive and immovable, and when Jesus appeared, Sarah fell to her knees. "Please," she begged. "Please, I transformed my life. I stopped performing. I loved sacrificially. I gave everything." "You did," Jesus said gently, "and I was pleased. Your transformation was real, Sarah. Your love for Marcus was genuine. Your sacrifice mattered. Hope flickered. Then why are the gates closed? Because you stopped forgiving." The words hit like a physical blow. "You don't understand what he did to me, don't I?" Jesus' voice was still gentle, but there was steel underneath. "Show her." The air shimmered and Sarah saw a vision. Jesus in a garden, praying, betrayed by a kiss from someone he loved. Judas, who'd walked with him, eaten with him, been called his friend, selling him for 30 pieces of silver. She saw Jesus arrested, beaten, mocked, crucified. Saw him hanging on that cross, dying for the very people who'd killed him. And she heard his words, the ones that broke her heart. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." "I was betrayed by one I loved," Jesus said quietly. "One I'd given everything to. One I called friend. Judas destroyed my mission, led me to torture and death. And I forgave him. I forgave them all." "That's different," Sarah whispered. "How? Because your pain feels bigger? Because your betrayal feels worse? Because you think your justified anger matters more than my command to forgive?" A book appeared, glowing with golden light, pages turning to Matthew chapter 6. Jesus read aloud, "For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." "But I forgave my father," Sarah protested. "I forgave everyone else. Everyone except the one who hurt you most." The one who tested whether your transformation was real or just another form of performance. Sarah, anyone can forgive small offenses, but I asked you to forgive those who destroy you, to love your enemies, to bless those who curse you. That's what qualifies you for heaven. It was too hard, Sarah sobbed. I never said following me would be easy. I said take up your cross daily. Your cross was forgiving Marcus, and you refused. The gates remained closed, solid and final. Angels appeared at Sarah's sides, beginning to lead her away toward darkness that yawned like an open mouth. No, Sarah screamed. Please, I'll forgive him. I'll do it. Give me another chance. Jesus looked at her for a long moment, and she saw such sorrow in his eyes it nearly broke her. Will you? Truly? Or will you just say the words to escape judgment? I will. I swear. Please. Unforgiveness is a prison. Sarah, you lock it from the inside. You're the only one with the key. If you choose bitterness, you choose death. Not just physically, but eternally. I understand. Please. Jesus raised his hand, and the darkness stopped. One more chance. But when you die again, and you will, this choice determines everything. Choose carefully. Light exploded and Sarah gasped back to life in that ambulance. 7 minutes after her heart had stopped, paramedics staring in shock as she screamed, I forgive him! I forgive him! The recovery took weeks. Broken ribs, punctured lung, skull fracture, internal bleeding. But the physical wounds were nothing compared to the spiritual ones. Every night, Sarah dreamed of those closed gates, heard Jesus' words echoing in her mind. When she was finally able to walk, she asked to see Marcus. He was still in a hospital recovering from the stab wounds, and when she was wheeled into his room, his face went white. Sarah, they said you died. How are you? I did die, Sarah said quietly. For 7 minutes, I was dead, and I went back to heaven's gates. She told him everything. The dream, the judgment, the closed gates, Jesus' words. Marcus listened with tears streaming down his face. And I came to tell you, Sarah said, her own tears falling now, that I forgive you. Completely. Fully. I release you from what you did to me. Not because you deserve it. Not because it doesn't hurt anymore. But because I want to go to heaven more than I want to hold on to this hatred. Sarah, Marcus's voice broke. I forgive you, she repeated. And, as she said the words, she felt something crack open in her chest. The prison door she'd locked from the inside swinging wide. The weight she'd been carrying lifting away. It wasn't instant healing. The pain was still there. The betrayal still hurt. But the poison was draining out, leaving room for something else to grow. They prayed together, both broken, both scarred, both desperately in need of grace. It wasn't reconciliation of their marriage. That was dead and gone. But it was reconciliation of souls, and it was enough. 6 months later, Sarah stood in front of a small church, her body still bearing scars from the accident, her heart still tender from the wounds Marcus had inflicted. But she was alive, really alive. I died, she told the congregation. I died and went to heaven and the gates were closed. Not because I hadn't changed, not because I was still performing, but because I refused to forgive someone who destroyed me. She rolled up her sleeve, showed them the scars on her wrist where the dashboard had crushed her bones. These remind me every single day. Unforgiveness will keep you out of heaven just as surely as pride or performance or any other sin. It doesn't matter what they did to you. It doesn't matter how justified your anger is. If you don't forgive, you won't be forgiven. She saw people crying, saw recognition in their eyes. She wasn't alone in her struggle. I won't lie to you, Sarah said. Forgiveness is the hardest thing I've ever done. Some days I still struggle. Some days the bitterness tries to creep back in. But every day I choose to release it. Because I'd rather be broke and betrayed and in heaven than rich and vindicated and in hell. After the service, a woman approached her, eyes red from crying. I haven't spoken to my sister in 5 years. She stole from me, lied about me, destroyed my reputation. How do I forgive that? Sarah took her hands. One day at a time. One choice at a time. It won't be easy. It won't be instant. But every day you choose forgiveness over bitterness. You're unlocking that prison door. And trust me, freedom is worth it. That conversation became dozens, then hundreds. Sarah started leading support groups for people struggling with unforgiveness. Betrayed spouses, abused children, defrauded business partners. People carrying wounds they'd every right to nurse, but couldn't afford to keep. She taught them what Jesus had taught her. That forgiveness isn't saying what happened was okay. It's releasing your right to revenge. It's trusting God with justice. It's choosing freedom over the satisfaction of holding on to hatred. And slowly, Sarah rebuilt her life. Not the platform, not the ministry empire, not the recognition. Just a simple, genuine life of service and love and choosing forgiveness every single day. She never saw Marcus again after that hospital room. Heard through mutual friends that he'd genuinely turned his life around, was serving at a homeless shelter, helping others the way she'd once helped him. She was glad. Not because she wanted a relationship with him, but because she wanted him to know the same freedom she'd found. Years later, when Sarah was older and her time was coming, she wasn't afraid. She'd spent every day of her second chance choosing forgiveness, choosing love, choosing to unlock that prison door. And when she finally did stand before those gates again, when Jesus appeared with that same brilliant light, she didn't have to wonder. The gates opened wide. "Well done, good and faithful servant," Jesus said, and this time there was no sorrow in his voice. Only joy. You learned the hardest lesson. You learned to forgive when it cost you everything. Welcome home. If you made it to the end of this story, then this message is specifically for you. Is there someone you need to forgive? Someone who betrayed you, destroyed you, hurt you beyond measure? Don't wait for a warning dream. Don't wait until you're standing before those gates, wondering if your justified anger was worth eternal separation from God. Choose forgiveness today. Not for them, but for you. Not because they deserve it, but because you want heaven more than revenge. Hit that like button if this story impacted you. Share it with someone who's struggling to forgive. And comment below. Who do you need to forgive today? Let's start this journey together. Subscribe for more stories that challenge your faith and change your life. Remember, unforgiveness is a prison you lock from the inside. You hold the key. Use it.